Pasquale Princi, welcome.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Being in small business, it's not easy, really, really tough. The biggest drop, I haven't really embraced the journey as much as I would have liked to. I'm on this wild journey and it is a roller coaster. I'm really not embracing it enough. This highlight was putting my suit on every day and going to work.
Yeah.
I just love that. I personally don't believe that you'll ever be satisfied.
Yeah, completely.
But you will be content. If you truly believe that you have something or you can do something differently, focus on that. And there's a business brand and there's a personal brand.
Totally. I love that you shared that. Thank you. That is music to my ears. Hello and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding and life from the Horizon Digital podcast recording studio here in Perth. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. Now, the Real Biz Life Chronicles is on a mission. We want to become one of Australia's leading business podcasts, but we need your help to do this. If you do enjoy this episode, we please ask that you like and subscribe to our channel below, or simply share this episode with a fellow business owner who is in the trenches doing one of the hardest things in the world, building a business. My guest today is the managing partner of SEER Financial Group and the founder of It's All About the Grey podcast. An entrepreneur at heart, he has become a partner at just 23 and managing partner at 26, driving SEER's expansion into Malaysia, China, and Italy. Growing up in his family's 75-year-old butchery business, he learned firsthand the grit of entrepreneurship. Now he's on a mission to challenge the norm, help ambitious business owners navigate the grey areas of business where strategy and real impact happen. Pasquale Princi, welcome.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and thanks for taking the time to have me on board.
Of course, I'm looking forward to our chat.
Likewise.
Pas, I'd love to know, growing up in a family business, what's the earliest memory you have where you realise that business is in your blood?
Look, I grew up in the shop at a very, very, very young age, to the point that I used to have a little stool that I could just get over the counter to serve customers. I probably came to realise, truthfully, when I was going through high school. As I've said on one of my podcasts, I actually started selling Continental rolls at school.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so I didn't realise, but coming to school every day as a young Italian, I usually had a pretty good spread for lunch.
Yeah. As do the Greeks.
As do the Greeks, as do most Europeans.
Yeah, true.
And yeah, some of the kids used to bail me up and say, we'll swap lunches and we'll do things. And eventually I saw an opportunity and started selling Continental rolls, myself and my cousin and myself.
Yeah.
And I think it was at that point that I came to the realisation that maybe I was built a bit differently.
Yeah, and how old were you?
Well, at this point I was probably year 10.
Okay, great, yes.
So I'd probably matured enough to realise that, there was probably more to life, I guess, than just going to school. And and I saw school as an opportunity.
Yeah.
So, Continental rolls was the start of my entrepreneurship journey. And really growing up through school, we always used to go to work. So it'd be go to school and fortunately for Dad or for the business, our house was across the road.
Yes,
so
convenient.
Yeah, so you drop your school bag off and get into the shop. And I used to spend all my school holidays growing up, working in the shop. And as most kids would go out and head to Rottnest or go to the movies or do cool things, I was spending a lot of time working in the shop. And I'm very, very, very fortunate for doing that in reflection now, given where I'm at in my very young business journey.
Of course.
It's shaped me very differently.
I love that because in grade 10, I used to sell fizz pops, those suckers, like a lollipop. So I undercut the tuck shop, I think, by about 50 cents. So they were like $2,000. We won't convert that to Australian dollars. But business was good for about a year and a half, and then I got banned.
Likewise.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, how long were you guys in business for?
I was fortunate to get it going for a couple of years.
Nice, longer than me.
And I broke into the staff base as well.
Oh, did you?
So I was supplying, and I don't know if I should say this, but I was supplying some of the teachers with Continental rolls.
You guys are ruthless.
Yeah, so I went right the way to the top until the canteen stopped selling sandwiches.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that I got pulled into the headmaster's office, and he gave me the opportunity to finish off that week, and I think in the last day we did about 150 rolls.
Oh my goodness!
So I had a big trend. There was probably 1,000 students at the school.
Yeah.
So supplying between 10 and 15% on the last day was a pretty good little journey, and my parents had no idea until I started walking around with sports bags filled with Continental rolls, and they started to click on.
Yeah, so were you guys making them at home and then taking them?
I was going to the shop in the morning, so I'd go to the shop across the road. It was probably 5:30 a.m. that I'd get in,
dedicated.
Start making rolls, jump on the bus, and from Murdoch train station all the way through to school, I'd be selling rolls, train station, second stops, bus, etc. Yeah.
And was it the deal of that exchange of, I guess, of something for money? Was it the fact that you were kind of doing something different? What was the attraction?
Well, obviously pocket money was helpful at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I price pointed it competitively, similar to yourself, at $8 a roll. But really for me, it was about, really sharing, I guess what I grew up with and food. In an Italian community, a European community, always brings good people together.
Very much so.
So it was like, you guys get to enjoy what I have, enjoyed my whole life. And that's really what the spirit was about. It's about bringing good people together and sharing a, Continental roll at lunch with all the boys.
Yeah, that community basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd love to know, was there something that stood out with your parents' business that kind of still sticks with you today?
Absolutely. Resilience. So being in small business, it's not easy. Being in a butchering business is really, really tough.
It would be.
A dying trade, obviously. There's not many kids that go to school that want to be a butcher.
No.
And the sheer hard work involved being a primary production business.
It's a labour.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it all starts from a young cow on the paddock, and the craft from the moment that the cow is born all the way until the end. So the resilience to push through, I guess, has really, really stood out, whether it be through an issue on the farm or an issue at the abattoir or an issue in the shop.
Yeah.
There's an ability to make things work, and that's really stood out for me in my parents' business.
And would you say that's the unexpected lesson, I guess, because butchery and, accountancy are worlds apart. Is that the key lesson that you would take away from that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've been taught through business is that there's more to meat, or there's more to what you're selling.
Oh, so much more.
Right. So whilst a client might come in and ask a question about tax or getting their tax return done, it's an opportunity to ask broader questions and get them thinking. Upselling for myself was normal in the shop. You'd come in for a steak and they'd walk out with steak, sausages and some mince.
The whole pack.
The whole pack, right? So because that's how you got to know your customers, what are you cooking, how are you cooking it, how many people have you considered, X, Y, and Z, and that has actually, worked out quite well in our business, where we get that opportunity. You come in for this, and we try and, make you walk out with that. Not that we want to upsell to get more revenue, but that there's more that the customer or the client wants.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like just constantly adding value, which for myself I've learned is a big one along that sort of sales journey, I want to say.
Correct. Yeah. And you should be giving more than you're taking at all times. Someone told me recently that you should aim to give 3 times more than you receive.
Yeah.
So,
that's a good thing to remember.
it's what about, they're coming to you because you're a source of information, not necessarily just to get their tax done. And as I say, to the crew or to the team, it's a client shouldn't be just viewed as a tax return or as a lodgement number or as a dollar. You're there to service them and support them in their business journey, and that's how you should view them. You should be a support partner.
And Paz, I think you've highlighted something else that's really important there is just having that personalised service, so someone doesn't just feel like they're an invoice at the end of the day.
Again, it's critical. We're talking about people's livelihoods. Really the role we play is almost a doctor in their personal life.
Of course.
We're I guess, the doctor of their business. So if you don't get your checkups, you don't listen to your doctor, chances are you'll come with ill health. And if you don't have a strategic accountant, chances are you might find yourself in financial distress. So you play a pretty critical role in these businesses.
Yeah.
And it's even more important that you're consistently adding that value.
Yeah, and it's the same in branding. Like if you don't look at the symptoms of your brand, all that investment of time, energy and money, will just go down the drain, and branding goes from becoming a marketing thing to a serious business issue as well. So completely relate to what you're saying.
Exactly right. And there's a business brand and there's a personal brand.
Totally. I love that you shared that. Thank you. That is music to my ears.
Yeah, very, very important. Again,
Yeah.
growing up in a family business, that's, again, one of the standouts too, is that the business has been around for 75 years. So
Amazing.
it has its brand, but it's in fact a surname that really people, you can drop. Fortunately for me, my family's surname, and it holds a lot of weight and a lot of value.
Yes.
Because of, my grandfather and my father and my cousin and the whole, my auntie and the whole team there. That surname is weight, and that's that personal and business brand.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of business owners often underestimate that weight that a personal brand actually does carry. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Critical.
Paz, as we know, business is a roller coaster. What has been your highest peak and your biggest drop so far?
That's a great question.
Do you want to do the drop first?
Yeah. I always like to start with the worst. The biggest drop has, I guess, really for me been, I haven't really embraced the journey as much as I would have liked to. And that's one thing that I consistently self-reflect that I need to get better at is I'm on this wild journey, and it is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
But I'm really not embracing it enough. And I feel there's a lot of power in embracing your wins and your losses and that self-reflection piece. So that's probably been my biggest drop in this business journey, is that I'm not embracing the journey enough.
Yeah, so you still feel like you're mastering that as such?
I am trying to get the balance right, because as an entrepreneur, we're always focused on the next shiny thing. Always. And we never really self-reflect. So in the business journey, fortunately, we've had a very, I guess, we've got some ambitious plans, and that journey's got so far so good. But really, the biggest drop is I'm not reflecting enough. The biggest highlight was, or I guess still is putting my suit on every day and going to work.
Yeah.
I just love that. And becoming a partner at a young age, I guess, was the roller coaster or the high.
Yeah.
But I thought it was the high. It really wasn't. The high for me is that challenging of taking the business to the next level every day, because being that 1% better every day is critical to me.
So important.
And critical to the journey of the business, and that's the mindset that we're trying to, I guess, create. In our business, is that just that 1% better compounding. You get to that journey and you get to enjoy it, and that's something I really need to work on. Yeah.
So are you finding you carving out time in your day to kind of reflect or journal, I want to say, or?
Yeah. So I find that my what works for me is just sitting down and having a chat. So it could be with someone else in the business. It could be my business partner. It could be my my coaches or my mentors, and I'm finding that's working a lot better. Where you can really sit down and probably just let out what you've achieved that day, that week, that month. And that's where you go, right, that was pretty cool.
The bragging rights.
Yeah. Or you do a deal and you go, I'm in the process of doing some deals at the moment, and fortunately we closed a deal last night, but my mindset was, but I've got to close the next one now,
See, I'm exactly the same.
Yeah, so, but I'm slowly getting there, but that's what I really need. It's a bit of a low in my roller coaster. I need to do that better.
Yeah, that resonates with me, because it's something I've been trying to embrace more. So I find like every quarter I'll sit and actually, go through my photos or journal and reflect, because again, you've highlighted, we just constantly go the whole time. Do you believe we will ever be satisfied?
Truthfully, no.
Yeah. Do you think that's a bad thing?
I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because I think as an industry we should evolve, or we should be challenging the norm. Personal satisfaction, people often say, well, when are you truly happy?
Yeah.
And in business, when are you truly satisfied?
Yeah,
and
true.
I think it's a tough question. And if there ever was a level of satisfaction or a level of happiness, what are you working towards?
Yeah.
Because that's the mindset, right?
Yeah.
We're always looking to be, bigger, better, faster, stronger. So I personally don't believe that you'll ever be satisfied.
Yeah, completely.
But you will be content.
So every ride has a moment of doubt. Have you ever thought, why did I get on this ride, and what pulled you through?
I've consistently thought why, my why. And I guess for me, what's pulled me through is that I've come from the business background and I've seen the highs and I've seen the lows and I've seen, the challenges, but I've also seen what my parents have built.
Yes.
And my grandfather has built, and that's probably what I want to do. That's what pulls me through, I guess.
The legacy?
The legacy, yeah. I often say to the guys, again, fortunately for us, we could walk into a venue that we supply or a local coffee shop, and what pulls me through is that someone I don't even know, you might say your name or you look familiar where you're from, and instantly there's this, I wouldn't say, you're superior, but
there's a familiarity.
Correct. There's a familiarity, and they go, right, that's so and so, and so that's what pulls me through.
Yeah.
My why is often linked to my personal purpose, and that's to empower others through change or through challenging the norm. So that's the why. Why am I here? Well, I want to, as an industry or as a business, evolve, and I want to set a standard that is the new norm.
Yes.
So.
And Paz, why do you feel that is your why? Because some people are quite happy just to float along in life. Why do you feel that's been, I guess, I want to say put on your life to have that as your why?
I guess coming from, the family business, I often see, myself as a bit of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I often see myself as a person where other businesses and friends do lean upon for advice.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm there because of the upbringing that I've had to now impart that knowledge and wisdom, notwithstanding I'm very young in my professional career.
Yeah.
But impart what I've learnt onto other individuals and businesses, because not very many people have that opportunity where your family business is still going
that's
for
incredible.
7 generations. That I feel like I'm now here to show them what it's all about.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And everything like those generations has led you up to this point as well in your life. So it's really beautiful.
Yeah. So now my job is to now give back.
Yes. I'd love to know if entrepreneurship had a seatbelt warning, what would it say?
Hold on.
Hold on tight.
Hold on tight. Make sure that seatbelt is buckled in, because it's not easy.
No.
And I guess if I was to probably put it to one thing, I think my warning would say, if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah, so true.
So yeah, it is a journey. You make sure that seatbelt is locked in, but it is worth it. Again, self-reflection is critical in business, and I'd like to think I'm pretty good at that. I'd like to think I do a daily self-reflection.
Great.
And I guess when you get to look back and see what you've built or some of the people you've got within your business or your clients and how you've helped them achieve their goals, it's worth it.
And Paz, something you highlighted earlier, and I'm very passionate about this space because, again, I feel a lot of business owners truly underestimate the power of having a mentor, an advisor, someone that is essentially an oxygen mask when you think your life is ending or your business. Yeah. How has that played a role in your business?
Well, in the business, it's critical. And we have a number of, I guess, coaches or mentors that we actually provide to the team in specific areas. And we've also got an internal resource that the team also use. I think without these individuals in the business, whether it be for your personal journey or your business journey,
which are so interlinked,
which are very interlinked, you get frustrated, right? And sometimes you just need that shoulder to lean on or to cry on or to vent, and they've gone through it too. So having someone that's been there, done that, is powerful. Yeah, because they go, yes, but, or yes, and have you considered this? Why don't you consider that? Let's look at this differently. And I think you're right. It's that oxygen mask, and you do need it. Yeah. So it's critical. And I've always said, if you don't have one, you should look to get one.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. There's another saying that I love, like you're in the jar and you can't see the label.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're so consumed by whatever the issue is or problem is that we're experiencing that we can't see those other pathways out of that situation. And I find, having an advisor will always say, well, Trace, have you thought about this? And I'm, in the stage of crying or whatever. And I know, but then you sort of say, oh, there's a light. So then you go down that way.
Correct. No, it's a great saying. I've never heard of that one, but I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. If ever I'm in a situation and I think like, what am I just not seeing? I'm like, you're in the jar, you can't see the label because, there's the perspective of having, there is a solution for the problem, but sometimes you're so consumed by it. So I often repeat that to myself to kind of just get me outside that jar. I always think of an old brown jar. I don't know why, but anyway, like those old medical, like don't ask me why, but I just find it kind of helps me, get out of that frame of mind. So.
Oh, it's good. It's good. And your mentor doesn't necessarily need to be related in your business industry. As a matter of fact, I personally prefer that they're not.
I agree.
Because they bring a whole different outlook.
They do. Yes. And I think that strengthens your own business and your, personally in various ways.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
Paz, you became a partner at 23 and managing partner at 26, which is amazing. That's not just climbing the ladder, that's strapping a rocket to it. What mindset or decision do you credit for this rapid rise?
I'm going to say that I always viewed the business as my own from a staff member's perspective.
Yeah, great.
And I'm going to probably put it to that, is that whenever I consulted with a client or whenever I had a discussion with my bosses at the time, it was always from the business's perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that enabled me to really, skyrocket very quickly and fortunately get into equity partnership at a young age. So when I did have the conversation with my now business partner, it was, well, I see this as an opportunity for the business and we can capitalise on it. I've been, personally doing that service or providing that to our clients. This has enabled the business to generate X. I feel I'm ready to now fold in.
Yeah.
And it was, I guess it was accepted very quickly that was an opportunity that they wanted to capitalise on and I was the man to lead the charge at that point in time. So, yeah, I think that mindset of looking at everything from the business's perspective allowed me to really skyrocket quite quickly.
And do you attest that to your Continental roll selling days? Or was there something that SEER was doing to actually, I guess, cultivate that within you?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to have a good working relationship with the partners at the time, where there wasn't the political issues or the bureaucracy of a number of tiers before you get to deal direct with the bosses.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate to have that. The background and upbringing also assisted. But really it was the client outcome that was achieved from the service line. So it wasn't necessarily me telling my bosses at the time the jobs that I'd done. It was the clients communicating directly to them because they have the relationship, obviously predominantly with the partners. So I feel like a lot of the clients and the feedback allowed me to push through and that really was it.
Yeah.
Let your clients do the talking, and I say that to the team all the time.
Yeah.
If you're screaming from the rooftops how good a job you're doing, or maybe you're not doing that good of a job.
I always say to my clients as well, like in terms of getting client testimonials, it's always so much better if someone else is blowing our horn as opposed to us always saying how fantastic we are. So I'm so glad that you've shared that. Thank you. Paz, what is the biggest myth about accountants that you absolutely love proving wrong?
In our business specifically, the myth is that accountants just do tax returns.
Yeah.
I love to prove that wrong when I walk into a room or when our team walks into a room and we view tax as an outcome rather than a job that we need to do. So more often than not, accountants will come and go, right, this is the numbers, this is what we're doing, this is your last year, this is the we'd like to think we don't do that unless that's what the client would like us to do.
Sure.
So we'd consistently come in and go, right, what's the transaction, what's the issue? How can we work together to resolve that issue? And let's look at accounting and tax at the end.
Yeah.
Let's not start it as a conversation starter. So that's what we like to, I guess, prove things wrong is instead of it being the conversation starter, let's talk about that at the end.
Yeah, because in my experience, that's what so many accountants do. So that's a really nice approach.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my next question. So tax is often seen as a necessary evil, but is there a way business owners should reframe their thinking about it?
Yeah, I obviously there's a legal necessity to lodge your taxes. Non-lodgement of taxes is actually can lead to criminal prosecution. As a matter of fact, under the Tax Administration Act 1953. So if you don't lodge your taxes, you can genuinely go to jail for it. That's the severity of it. The mindset, so the mindset should be viewed differently. And I think if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Packer came out and said this, is that tax needs to be paid. I don't think tax evasion should be encouraged, but tax minimisation should be. So I think people need to understand and respect the fact that we need to pay taxes, but we should view it as paying the right amount of tax. So if you're paying tax, arguably it's a good thing because you're making money, you're making profits.
Of course.
And, the Australian economy, a substantial amount of our revenue comes from tax, so you need to contribute to that. But rather than looking at it as a bad thing, we'll look at it as, well, yeah, I've made a profit. Yeah, I've made a bit of tax.
Yeah.
That tax has gone to developing, something like a hospital or a local centre or whatever it is. Our job is now to try and make sure that we don't pay too much. So it's not a bad thing.
No.
Stop looking at it as a bad thing. Look at it as a good thing, and then use the tax incentives to your advantage.
Yeah, and just to see in Australia, because I'm originally from South Africa, and just to see what they actually do with taxpayers' money. And I hear some Australians complain and I'm like, wow, compared to South Africa, like the healthcare system, you guys have like public transport, you guys are so blessed. So I think that is a key thing that you've mentioned, that it's kind of, adding to society as well.
Absolutely. And again, you may not necessarily agree with how it's all spent, but it's probably fair to say, like you've rightly put, as compared to other countries, we're pretty good.
Yeah. Definitely. Paz, what is the biggest tax mistake you see a lot of entrepreneurs make, and how can they avoid it?
It's a great question. The biggest tax mistake is they don't get advice prior to commencing their business because they believe that you can go online and read an article and set your business up as a personal ABN.
Yeah.
That isn't often the biggest issue, is that you don't get advice up front before you get into business, and then it becomes very costly to do it at the back end.
Yeah.
So setting up a company with your shares held in a trust is the free advice that I would give.
Yeah.
Ensure that you set your company right from the get-go to avoid the costly exercise 2, 3, 4 years down the track. Yeah, okay, it costs a little bit of money to get, some advice up front. But again, I'm gonna resonate it back to a doctor. If you'd just seen the GP early on in the piece, maybe you wouldn't have developed a serious condition.
Precisely, yeah. It's I think it goes back to that, someone starts a business, they kind of just, naturally fall into it, and then it's that avoidance thing as well. So yeah, great advice to definitely see someone like yourself before starting a business, and don't waste your time in Xero. When they've done that, wasted a whole weekend, I'm still upset about it, never mind. If you could tattoo one tax rule on every business owner's arm to save them money, what would it be?
One tattoo, one rule.
Well, it could be 5. I mean,
yeah, I've got. Well,
I guess
tattoo one rule is tax plan.
Yeah.
So as with any plan, failing to plan is planning to fail.
Oh, totally.
And it's important that you tax plan. So I'll tattoo that rule because that really for us is the ultimate opportunity to meet with businesses, see how they perform for the year. And again, it's often overlooked. And after you do it once or twice, yes, you're more educated and some clients go, oh, well, I probably don't need it this year. But the thing is that rules change.
Yeah, they do.
And legislation changes. So having a good advisor and accountant that's ahead of the curve or adopting of the legislation changes is critical. But the whole of an hour or 2 hours out of one day could save you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. So tax plan is the rule that I'm going to drop, and it's critical that you do it.
Yeah, and it's your livelihood at the end of the day. And if you haven't got a hold on that, then I think you'd constantly you'd feel very unsettled the whole time.
Exactly right. And, I don't tell you how to do marketing.
No.
So you shouldn't necessarily tell your accountant how to be an accountant.
Actually, some people do try to tell me, but never mind. Put that back in the bag.
Yeah. But again, that's why you have advisors. Sit with them, speak with them, take on the advice and put it in place, because, sometimes spending a little bit of money, later in the latter half of the year could save you a substantial amount. And it's an investment, right? So, meeting with your accountant is an investment, because you should be learning a little bit every time you meet with them. They should be giving some little 1%er that you go, oh, I didn't know that, or I'll look at that differently next time.
And obviously your research, but also trust in someone. Like if they make recommendations and you've paid for the time, like trust that advice and go away and actually do it.
Exactly right.
Because I think some people, they have the session or whatever and then they go away and just completely revert to like the old norms again. So.
Correct. Take on the advice. Couldn't agree more.
As for business owners trying to scale internationally, what is the most overlooked tax consideration?
That's a great one. International tax is its own beast.
Yeah.
And there's obviously double tax treaties or agreements that we reach between countries. People often think that you can start up a business in Italy, China, Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai as a tax haven, set up a company and think that they're taxed because they've got a company there. That's in fact not the case. There's a number of different rules, but fundamentally speaking, if central management and control and decision making is still based within Australia, you are taxed in Australia,
right?
Regardless of the fact that you've got an international company. Australian tax is fundamentally based on the fact that you are taxed on worldwide income, period.
I see.
Okay, so just because you set up a company there, that doesn't necessarily mean you get the advantage of the tax, opportunities that you would in another country as compared to Australia.
So some people have that misconception that if they set up there, they kind of avoid it.
Yep, absolutely. Right. Yeah, I've set up in Dubai and I'm a cryptocurrency trader. That means that, I don't pay any tax because obviously in Dubai, Saudi or UAE or wherever through that country or that area, there's an understanding that they don't pay tax and they often speak about it, right?
Yeah.
But if you're cryptocurrency trading here in Perth from your room, that doesn't necessarily mean you get the advantages of the tax rate.
Paz, if there was an ultimate tax strategy in just 3 words, what would it be?
An ultimate tax strategy?
Yeah, in just 3 words. You can make it 5.
Okay. Structure for future is probably what I'm going to put it. So you never establish your tax structure up front based upon what you're going to achieve this year. It's all about that 5, 10, 20-year plan. So whenever you meet with your accountant to talk about tax, it's important that your tax structure is for future. Yeah.
Love that. So I guess for the listeners, I'm hoping there's not too many that are feeling this way. When it comes to their tax, they just have that inner gut feeling that something isn't right. They've been avoiding their accountant. They might not even have one. What would your advice to them be to, rectify things in that perspective?
So rectification with respect to getting an accountant? Or?
With their tax. So just know they haven't been paying tax or they potentially, I come across business owners who they're in a pickle and that fear just keeps them from actually contacting someone because I guess it's the weight of the potential consequence. Like you highlighted, it does have severe consequences. Yes. So what would your advice then be? Maybe just like a stepping stone to kind of get out of that headspace.
Well, first and foremost, get your head out of the sand is probably the real advice I'll give. So it's not going to go away. As a matter of fact, the issue's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
So if you align yourself with a strategic advisor or an accountant that can attend to these issues, most of the time the tax office is really open to working with them.
Great.
I think there's a misconception that the tax office is this big bad bandito
I think
that
so,
it's bad if the tax office is calling you. No. The tax office is there to help as well,
and to
right?
be supportive.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because I don't know if you're aware, but as a country, we owe the tax office probably now close to $65 billion.
I heard, yeah.
So, you're not the only one that has tax owing to the tax office, but it's important that you work with them.
Yeah.
So pull your head out the sand.
Quickly.
Quickly. Work with someone that can not only prepare your taxes, but also negotiate with the tax office. And they're no different to any bank, any creditor, they're happy to work with you.
Yeah, that's a good way to kind of frame it because, yes, they do seem to have this bad wolf kind of, perception amongst business owners.
Correct. And I look, maybe historically because people had done bad things and it was publicised that the tax man did X, Y, and Z. Maybe that's where it has come from. But, I'd like to think that they're relatively easy to deal with. They're open, no different to any other business. In normal hours, you pick up the phone, you speak to them, you have a chat, and you get a resolution.
Yeah, and they actually answer the phone quite quickly, surprisingly.
They do sometimes.
Paz, most people like to play it safe when it comes to numbers, but you seem to thrive in the grey. What's the boldest risk you've taken in business, if you're happy to share, of course?
Of course. The boldest risk that I've taken is probably just looking at accounting differently and looking at business differently. So most businesses will probably go, we're comfortable in doing X because we've done it for so long. I often go, I want to do the exact opposite of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I consistently take risks in business decision making on a daily basis. So, this person is employed to do X. I go, well, why can't that person be employed to do X and Y?
Yeah.
So I think that's the risk I take daily.
Yeah, breaking the mold.
Yeah, but they've done it for years. I don't want to do that. Why? But it's always, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do it differently. And that's probably what I do, as I said, not only in my business but with some of our clients is challenge it.
Yeah.
And it's a risk, right? Because, people often say, well, if it's going, why change?
Yeah.
I want to change and I want to change for the better. So it's calculated, just do,
of course.
Let's just not lodge our tax because we want to do it differently. Like that's not what I'm proposing. But it's about looking at things differently with obviously the ultimate outcome being better than what we've already done.
Do you find that flows into your personal life as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'd like to think I'd try and do things a bit differently than the norm. And I guess the support network enables me to do that. So when I do approach an issue differently, I will approach it not only as an individual, as an advisor, but I'd seek advice from others too. So it's a holistic approach, and I use that in my personal life too, that, again, I've not just not lodge my taxes or not see my doctor.
Be sensible.
not see my doctor, but I would go, well, if I do X, Y, and Z, then I probably don't need to see my doctor so frequently. And, if I change this and change that, then I'll probably get this outcome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd like to think I approach life a bit differently, and particularly business.
And I'd love for you to please share with our audience a bit about your podcast that you've created.
Sure. So the podcast was effectively created in the last 12 months based upon a podcast that I got asked to be present on. And it's called It's All About the Grey. And as the slogan says, the dark art, it's easy to manage the black and white. The art is in managing the grey.
Yeah.
So again, the purpose of the podcast is to bring other business owners on or professionals on that have had an experience in business, and to talk about the tough aspects of business and then how they then navigated their way through it. So it's a tough conversation to have with some people that have either struggled or gone through a pretty torrential period through business, but there's so much value that can be extracted from how they got out of it and where they got to in the end. And that's the point of the podcast, to try and get the worst out of people in business and share it. And it's often said, that whilst it might be perceived to be tough, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So push through. And failing is not bad.
No.
Failing is okay. And that's one of the things I've pulled away from my podcast is people often say, just because it didn't work, that doesn't mean the next thing won't.
Yeah.
Just accept it and move on.
Yeah, and I think my mentor always says is fail forward. So, fail, get the blood nose, get back up.
Yeah, fail forward or fail fast.
True.
Yes.
And I love what you guys are doing with your podcast, because I again read something the other day that said, when someone shares, when they're being so vulnerable, it's so brave because they're actually taking ownership of their journey, their decisions that they've made. So I never discount the fact when I have a podcast guest come on the show, because they're actually just taking that ownership in their true authenticity and just sharing their experience. So thank you for coming on today.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Paz, So the art is in managing the grey. What's a moment in your career where you had to navigate the thickest grey area, and how did it change your perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. Where I've had to navigate things is I've had some business partners in the past, and working things out with them has been a dark art.
I can imagine.
Because they look at things a bit differently. But I'm grateful for it because it's allowed me now to have a different perception.
Sure.
So, when I wouldn't say you've butt heads on an issue, but, you view things a bit differently.
Sometimes you do, yeah.
I've been able to try and look at their side of things before I then respond or react. So it's a more informed, reaction.
Yes.
Whereas before it was like, no, this is what I want to do. That's what I'm doing, and they go, no, but why are you doing that when we could do this? And I always struggled to see things from their perspective.
Sure.
So that's been something that navigating that challenge or working with them, swallowing the pride, swallowing the ego and going, okay, there is a reason I've got a business partner. Maybe I should probably take on their advice and then look at things from their perspective, which ultimately gets a better outcome.
And Paz, you seem to thrive on uncertainty. Like you said before, you do things differently. How do you keep moving forward when the path isn't clear?
I enjoy the dark path. So I enjoy the path with no light that no one goes down.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the, what keeps me moving forward, or it's being intrigued. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by, but I'm going to take that next step. So that's what keeps me moving forward, is being intrigued to see what that path will lead me to.
Yeah. Love that. If someone is naturally uncomfortable with uncertainty, how can they train themselves to embrace it like you do?
If they're uncomfortable with uncertainty?
With uncertainty. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think we touched on it earlier, is fail fast or fail forward.
Yeah.
So that would probably be the advice I would give, is that just because it didn't work out, that doesn't mean it always will be that way.
Yeah.
So back yourself in, fail, get back up, try it again. And I think people are uncertain because they're actually scared or worried about failing.
Yeah, true.
And that's probably it's okay to fail. Get back up. We can do it again. I've failed many, many times.
Oh,
and
same.
I embrace the failure. I go, oh, okay, I can see where that went wrong.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Still trying to get the same outcome, but let's approach it a bit differently. And you should embrace that failure. You should then self-reflect on the event, and then have a more informed decision moving forward.
I often think I think it was Melanie Perkins who created Canva. I think she got like hundreds of no's over the span of like 8 years and just kept going. And I mean, now look where her business is. It's like on gangbusters. So it just goes to show, and what you've highlighted as well, is just that resilience, that persistence to just like, okay, have the fail, move on, just keep going. And great things do come at the end.
Absolutely. Just back yourself in, as I say to everyone every day, If you fail, don't worry about what Billy down the street says or what Joe across the road. It's irrelevant. Just focus on you and focus on what you're trying to achieve. And at the end, then you'll see them, applauding you and going, "Oh, look at him now! Look at him now!"
Yeah.
It's in Australia. I find there's in fact actually tall poppy syndrome.
Completely.
So if you are going to back yourself in, everyone, even when you get to the top, they're probably going to try and chop you down anyway.
Very true.
So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just focus on you.
Oh, so you almost have to have a bit of like, I hope I'm okay to say this, Donald Trump syndrome, where you're just like, oh, you don't care, just keep going.
Just go for it.
Oh my gosh, you just have that add to like hard shell and just, keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Paz, what's a business lesson from an international market that Australian entrepreneurs are completely missing out on?
I believe that Australian entrepreneurs, where we go wrong here in Australia is that we're very slow at embracing, but very quick at adapting.
Sure.
Okay, so in Australia, if there's a new technology, very few will look to embrace it. But once it's been embraced, they'll then adapt it.
Yeah.
So from an international perspective, they are challenges the norm. They're developers of these new technologies, and they're out there. Whereas one thing in Australia that we don't do is that we're not out there. We'll wait for things to happen, and then we'll adapt. So a classic example is I've recently been to China a few times, and through the expansion, of course. And the technology they have over there is just mind-boggling, and the way that they do things, again, is just crazy. You come to Australia, it's almost, or back to Perth particularly, it's like we're going back into, 40 years
Time
behind.
off.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So I think that's one thing we need to learn, is that we need to get out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
We need to travel the world. We need to see how people are doing things, and we need to bring that back and take it to the next level here in Australia.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually having this chat with my friend, went for a walk at 5 a.m.
Right.
And we were speaking about how overseas they really embrace their coastline. Now, I know there's obviously marine stuff and all that involved, but we've got such a beautiful coastline, and I almost feel like Perth doesn't touch it. And like I said, I don't know if it's because of the marine biology. Obviously, there's something, that plays a part, but just really maximising what we really have.
Yeah, and even from a business sense at a state level, I was speaking with somebody yesterday and he rightly pointed out that there's very, very little hotels on our coastline through, Fremantle to Scarborough.
So true.
Why?
Yeah. I've wondered the same.
Yeah, we've got such a beautiful coastline.
So beautiful.
Why, particularly there's that break between, Scarborough and Cottesloe. Why don't we put some apartments and hotels there? You bring people across overseas, you go, you stay in the city, I'll pick you up and take you to the beach.
Yeah.
Why can't we just have an abundance of hotels, along our coastline? From a business sense, it makes so much sense.
It does. And it's not that far from the city either.
Correct.
So,
yeah. Maybe there's other political agendas, but we won't get into that on today's podcast.
That was like waiting for Starbucks to open in Perth. We finally have two.
Exactly right.
So, Paz, if you guys could open a SEER office anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Well, I'm on that journey at the moment, so I'm getting the experience of opening offices around the world.
Great.
Where would I open an office and why? I don't necessarily think it's about the where. I think it's probably about the why. And the why would be to make an impact on the community. So if I'm able to open an office anywhere in the world that essentially enables us as a business to give back and to empower and to challenge the norm, then that's the place I'm opening it.
Yeah.
So, the why would be to give back to the community or to empower others or to allow them to elevate their businesses. But the where to me is irrelevant. If it was up to me, I'd love to open an office in every country, but that's unachievable. But impactful change is achievable, so I'd open where I can make a lot of impact. But that's not only impact in country, that's impact for existing clients too.
Yeah.
So, us working, through China and Europe, the intention is to create that link between other aspects of the world or other countries. We can then bring that back and then take our clients on that journey too.
And Paz, obviously in your day-to-day life, it's pretty intense. There's a lot that happens. Do you have anything in your daily routine that you do to kind of help manage that workload from a mental well-being point of view?
I've got an amazing assistant.
Oh, yes. Is that Maria?
That's Maria.
Oh, yes. I've worked with her. She's amazing.
Who's also my sister, so that helps.
Good. Get to boss your sister around.
Yeah,
nice.
I don't know. I think she bosses me around.
Good.
I'm very thankful to have Maria. But as well for me, I start my mornings really early. I get up at 4:45 or 4:15.
Oh, wow, that is early. I thought 5 was good.
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah. So I'm up early and I'm in the gym and that's my me time. And it's not necessarily about in the gym to maintain fitness, which is important. It's about my mental well-being. So that for me is that, all right, let's prepare mentally for the day that's ahead.
Love that.
I'm up, I'm ready, I'm back home, I'm showered, I've had breakfast and I'm into work. I've already had 3 hours in that morning,
and settled.
Correct. So I'm ready. Like I've had my coffee, I'm ready to hit the day.
Yeah.
So that for me is my mental well-being aspect, is that by allowing myself to train early in the morning, I'm then set to take on the day. So that's how I look after myself.
Yeah. And do you find you have like a spiritual or religious practice at all that helps with that?
Not particularly, no.
Yeah.
Not really. No, I don't really. Not that I don't believe I'm a Catholic.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. From a religious point of view, everyone's different.
Of course, yes.
Spiritually, not really. I just the gym.
Own
That's
the day.
that's it. Own the day. Like let's get it.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to having that resilience that you mentioned before as well, just getting up, doing what needs to be done, prep yourself for the day and just owning it.
Yeah, and if something goes wrong, look at the positives of it. Like I often say to myself, it could be worse.
Yes, you and me both.
Your tire's flat, could have got hit by a car. That's the way I see things.
Yeah, put in perspective.
I'm late for a meeting. Well, I could have just not made the meeting. I might be late, but at least I'm still there.
True, you still showed up. Yeah.
Again, I think it's about mindset. So look at things differently. Look at the positives, and then focus on the outcome. Yeah,
the other thing I love is that this too shall pass. I think it's just a good reminder. If you just have a sulk for a day, next day is a new start, go to the gym, whatever. And it's something that I just also always keep with me. Paz, you're on a mission to empower others through change. What's a change you resisted at first but later realised was essential for your growth?
Great question. Change I resisted at first was I need to challenge myself.
Yeah.
So initially I was like, I don't want to change. I know what I'm doing. I've got this under control. I'm young. I can take on the world.
Right.
So I had to change myself before I could then empower others through change.
Yeah.
So changing the perspective of the young, hungry entrepreneur that knew everything, I then came to realise that, seeking the advice of others was critical.
Yeah.
So I guess that's enabled me to then empower others, is that let's speak to other people. Let's get their perspective. Let's actually take that perspective on board. And then let's deliver, that change. So that's really for me what it had worked, because, again, growing up in a family business, dad or mum was always right because they're the boss.
Same. My upbringing was the same.
So, sometimes, going in, when I then rolled out, I was like, well, my dad was right, so I must be right, But yeah, that for me was critical.
Was there something that happened that changed that perspective for you, if you're happy to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I suffered some defeats that I didn't expect to suffer, and I swallowed the pride.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so for me that was really the light bulb moment per se. It was like, you're not always right, mate.
Yeah.
Take it on board, accept the shortcoming, and now you need to learn from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it wasn't a bad defeat, or again, I look at it as a defeat. Really, it was probably just something small. But to me, it was a defeat.
Yeah,
and it was like, okay, now you need to understand why they are there, or why that is why it is, or whatever this issue or whatever it was. But accept it, swallow the pride, and do things differently next time.
I think a big one for me is to always be humble, because life can change in an instant and you never know what someone else is kind of going through at the same time. So that's been a big lesson. Like you say, through those dips, the defeats can shape us. Well, I guess it depends which way you let it go, but it can definitely make you a better person. But I think always stay humble is a big one.
Couldn't agree with you more. Humbling experiences.
Yeah. Paz, if business success wasn't measured in money, how would you define it for yourself?
I would define it by what others say about my business. So it's not about the monetary benefit. It's about what others then, I guess, say about you or your business when you're not there. So I'd measure it by that. If they're going to give you a glowing review without you even knowing or behind your back, that to me is true success.
And what do you believe they would say?
Oh, I'd like to think they say good things.
Feel free to brag.
I don't know. I think they'd probably say Pass is the type of guy that gets it, and he's a partner in our business. So that's what I would like to think they would say, or he achieved something that others haven't achieved, etc. So that's probably about me. But again, about the business, I'd like to think that, we're doers.
Yes.
So if you call them up, I'm sure they'll either get it done or know someone that can.
And Paz, I love asking this question. If there was a song that played every time you entered a room, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know. The Final Countdown.
I did ask Maria, but she didn't give me an answer. So Final Countdown. Yeah,
I'm not too sure. Look, music again, I've never really had walkout music.
Neither. Sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, never really had to do it. But if I'd pick something off the top of my head, the Final Countdown.
Cool. I love that. If you could go back to your Continental roll selling days, what's one bit of advice or two pieces of advice that you would give your younger self?
Probably seeking approval would be a good start. So I feel in reflection is that I had an opportunity to commercialise, which could have been supplying the canteen.
Right. Yeah.
So rather than going into competition with the school, maybe I probably could have considered working with them.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I might have achieved a longer term success.
And do you feel that would be the advice from where you are now you'd give your younger self as well, to rather have that collaborative approach?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so again, being an entrepreneur, you want to take on the world yourself all the time, but having a collaboration and a team around you, long term is the view. And I was listening to an audiobook this morning. It was, if you want to get somewhere fast, go yourself. If you want to go somewhere long term, go as a team.
Yeah, love that.
So so yeah, that's where I probably would check myself and go, right, yeah, you got there, but you could have got there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I love that. I was also, undercutting the canteen and all that sort of stuff. And like you say, probably if I collaborated or like wheeled a deal or something, I don't know, maybe it would have worked out differently.
Yeah.
Paz, if you could have one dream guest on your podcast, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Elon Musk.
Yeah. I reckon that would be one hell of a conversation.
Yeah, I again, when we're talking about challenging the norm, I admire his ability to challenge the norm on a global scale, and it'd be so intriguing just to have him on and listen to what he does and how he does it, because everything is just so unique. Like you can't get to the moon, or you can't do it. Like he's just like, nah,
he just
no problem. SpaceX it is. EVs are futuristic, no problem. Let's get Tesla.
We do it, incredible mind.
And Doge and what he's doing there. I was listening to something yesterday on TikTok, and they were saying there's social welfare recipients in excess of 200 years of age. Donald Trump's come out and said, I would like to meet these people. Yeah. Like what he's doing in that government department is fascinating. And my understanding is I guess his end goal is to save $2 trillion.
Wow.
That is how much he's quantified with this government department. So, I believe he'd be great to have on the podcast and to, really delve into how he views things, because it's so unique.
And Paz, if you have any final words of wisdom for someone who is potentially thinking of starting their business, or they're perhaps in the trenches and they just feel a bit overwhelmed, what would your advice to them be?
My advice will be focus on the outcome rather than what it is today. So, if you truly believe that you have something, or you can do something differently, or you will make a difference somewhere, focus on that, rather than focusing on the difficulty you face trying to start it up or being in the trenches. It's not about that. It's about the journey you're going to get that outcome. So that'd be the advice. Just consistently pull yourself out. Look at the outside of the jar. I think you were saying
the label.
The label of the jar. Like that is, I couldn't agree with you more. Like there's more to business than failures. And whilst it might be tough, just focus on getting to that outcome.
Thank you for sharing.
Welcome.
Paz, where is the best place for our audience to go should they wish to connect with you?
Obviously LinkedIn, being a professional is the preferred place. So if you go on LinkedIn, I'm sure you better look me up. I've got quite a unique name.
Yes, we'll pop it in the show notes as well. And you're really active on LinkedIn, which is nice to see as well.
Yeah, try to be. Again, it's all about sharing a message and reaching and engaging with other businesses and business owners, and even accounting firms for that matter. I don't necessarily see everyone as a competition. We're in business together, and we should be, uplifting each other. So I try and use LinkedIn as the platform, and then from there, if I can engage and take things to the next level, I will.
Yeah, and I'm biased, but for brand, both personal and business, it's fabulous.
Couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely.
Paz, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for all that you shared as well.
Welcome, no worries, and thank you so much for having me on board, and I wish you the very best with your business and your podcast.
Thank you so much.
No worries.